Hello, welcome to podcast number 16 in the meanwhile in the Falklands from FITV. You may, the keener listeners out there may realise that it sounds completely different. That's because both of our pieces of equipment that we normally film this podcast on, normally record this podcast on, are both abroad at the moment. So we're having to, what Thomas would describe as a potato microphone and a potato camera. So it does sound like we're in a bit of a tunnel. Anyway, I'm here, it's Paula.
I'm here too, it's Caiti.
So that's just it, it's just us two.
I know.
Well, when we say that, obviously, it hasn't just been us two this week, because we've had Tom and Dan in the other room doing our
all the
animations.
Bits, all the animation things that just float right over my head, and they're very, very good at.
And quicker at it, I think, from...
The speed,
Yeah, much quicker.
Anyway, they laugh when I ask them questions too, so...
Before we start anywhere, I've got some corrections to make and some apologies.
Okay.
So first of all, the What's On guide last week with the curry shots were Gurkha curry shots, and possibly Gurkha curries didn't appear in whatever it was that we advertised them as. Yes. So that's a bit of a shame. This week's programme has got a package that was made by a previous employee of FITV, and he does pronounce Viscount as Viscount, so we apologise for that. And also,
here we go.
Last week, when I was having my rant about not being able to take knitting needles on the air bridge, I said, I'm 45-year-old woman with a back problem. I'm not Matthew Bourne, who obviously is a ballet dancer. And what I really meant was, I'm not Jason Bourne. But that's just because I'm...
There's just such a big difference between Jason Bourne and Matthew Bourne. Like, if you're not Matthew Bourne, like, okay.
I mean, obviously, we don't know. I mean, Matthew Bourne might be absolutely lethal.
He might be. He could be lethal.
With a knitting needle and a crochet book.
You
could do some damage with them. Those block shoes are really quite heavy. So, I apologise for that anyway.
I love that Matthew Bourne is where your head went. Like, you went to ballet dancer. Like, what? Okay.
Anyway, we're here on our own because Thomas is in Chile.
Yep.
Following the...
doing a fantastic job. He's following the hockey teams out there, and our social media pages are bouncing at the minute because he's putting out live updates and making comments on what they're doing and things like that. So if you didn't manage to catch that, you're able to view it after the events as well, if you just want to know the specific scores, by going on to our Facebook page, which is FITV, and you can find out all about the Stanley Hockey teams that are in Chile at the minute.
Yeah, and they seem to be doing quite well as well.
Yes, I heard that all the teams won yesterday.
I think a film needs to be made about that, because they're here in the Falkland Islands, there's no ice rink, and then they go over to Chile, and Grant just shoves ice skates on them, it sounds like, and off they go.
It's like the Mighty Ducks all over again.
It's brilliant. So we were sitting here thinking about what we could talk about that's serious, and the skills shortage list came up. The skills shortage came up, which is very, very, very serious. So if you don't know, obviously the Falkland Islands, a very small place, and we are short of people. And quite frankly, I mean, I've not really had it first hand, but apparently there are people out there who sort of have a go at contract workers and stuff like that. But without contract workers coming down here for their short-term contracts, that we wouldn't have things like the
lots
school,
of things,
the hospital. Mm-hmm. And all these things are on the skills shortage list, aren't they? Yeah,
and I think especially if, contract workers coming down, they give so much back to society, most of them, and things like that. And
I think that's it. I think some people will say, and admittedly there are, I've noticed that in the time that I've been here, there are contract workers that come down here and do their thing and then go away.
Right.
Before their contract is finished, because of better things come along, or we were a stepping stone for them, or whatever. But there are a lot of contract workers who are desperate to stay down here.
Absolutely.
And can't for some reason. So that's something that they certainly should look at. So we were looking at on the skills shortage list, and then I said, what can you not do down here? And there was a long pause before we came up with anything.
Yeah, and the things that we did come up with are all a bit, you couldn't do those in lots of places in the world.
Yeah, so we came up, we couldn't be a theatre critic.
Well, no.
Really?
You'd be a bit slim on the ground.
Yeah, we couldn't do it for a living. And a professional wrestler.
I mean,
we thought that.
That is my dream career, and I cannot fulfill it while here. No, yeah, that would be pretty tricky down here.
Yeah, but there are a few, and I think, there's been cases of people that come down here who've got a certain skill, who want to do that kind of job, and then just create that for themselves.
Well, that's the other thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
You sort of have to, especially for the students in school, they're obviously taught quite early that they need to think on their feet and sort of think outside the box and make their own ideas come to life. You can't just sit back and let it happen. So I think it is good. Things like, obviously there's been quite a fancy hairdressers opened up quite recently, and they've sort of gone a bit upmarket and made it all nice in there and things like that, haven't they? So that you can get a real quality experience. And I think that's the sort of thing that you just need to work at down here. And you can make it happen, as they have.
Yeah, so we have been thinking about what careers there should be down here, and we started at the beginning, obviously, with A for accountancy, and well, we just pulled an accountant off the street, actually.
He was wandering past the door.
He was just wandering past the door and said, "No, oi, you, in here." So here's our new section, and if I had my ukulele with me, this is where we would do the bling for the next section, and we are joined by Stephen Foams.
Strange who's
you
got
can
the same
talk
last
now.
name as
Oh,
you.
let's talk. Okay, hi.
So, Stephen, you've been an accountant for a very long time, haven't you?
I have apparently wanted to be an accountant since the age of 14. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And you've got rather a lot of letters behind your name as well. Are you just collecting them? Are there any
Yes,
you
I
haven't
can
got?
make up various words and sentences with them.
Is that what you do when you're in between accounting?
Yeah, in between jobs, I just make up words and sentences with them. Yes.
Okay. So we've discussed some questions that we want to ask you.
have.
So anyone who wants to be an accountant out there who's listening to this and thinking, well, how can I be an accountant on the Falkland Islands? Let's start with that.
Yeah.
I mean, is it possible if I were to suddenly say today, do you know what, I'm going to be an accountant, what would I do here?
Well, there's various routes to become an accountant. One of the routes available here is to do the AAT route, so the Association of Accounting Technicians, and you can do that here through the training centre. And then
I don't think the AAT have ever had a woo in their life.
Probably
That's a
not.
woo.
Possibly
That sounds
not.
great.
And then you can do go on further and then choose, once you've become a qualified accounting technician, to either do the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, the Association of Certified Accountants, or the Association of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales or Scotland.
Thank you.
So, I mean, that's really, this is one of those careers that I think is really good, because the students down here, they are, when they go to do A-levels, although they can do a handful of A-levels at the training centre, they go to the UK to do that. And if you were the sort of person who didn't want to leave here, doesn't want to go to the UK, where you've got no relatives, where you've got no support network, you can actually train for this career here in the islands.
Yes, you can. You can also do A-levels in the islands, which
Yes.
is a little known fact. So there's a training centre.
They don't do
centre
chemistry,
offers
apparently.
Some A-levels.
Yeah, we don't do
Not.
chemistry, but then you don't need chemistry for accountancy,
Well,
do you?
there are. I mean, that's the thing. A lot of people get into accountancy by accident. So they
Chemistry of
they-
numbers, you know.
Absolutely, they go away. I mean, when I was training, I think at least half of the people on my training cohort had done history or geography or some completely unrelated degree, and then did a sort of foundation course as part of their first year of training.
So we were thinking about questions to ask you.
Yeah, I'm actually aware of a person who's training to be an accountant here as well.
Oh, yeah.
So that might be something that we're able to speak with you and this person together on.
Look
that would
at
be
us.
interesting,
Look
wouldn't
at
it?
Meanwhile in the Falklands podcast, we're bringing people together. Look at that. Isn't that wonderful? Look at us go.
Wonderful. Yes, so we have been thinking of questions for you.
So the number 4, how often do you use that one?
All the time. It's a part of my regular day's experience.
Right,
the number of times it pops up is at least 4.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, actually, I have to say, talking about the number 4, the Penguin News this week. Oh, I said the PN word. And the Penguin News this week, they did a write-up on the drag show and said there were 3 firemen. Actually, there were 4.
Do you think that's something that you can teach them about?
Yeah.
Counting?
Do you think they're not using the full range of numbers
that's available
Possibly not. Although, in fairness, the one on the far left was rather in the shadow, so maybe he wasn't spotted from the angle that
that's
the Penguin News representative was
Let's
in.
give them that. Give them that. Anyway, we've had a very busy week this week.
We have.
Doing lots and lots of things. There's lots of court on, which we will just gloss over because that's quite stressful. You went to speak to Karen at Government House about the Chevening Scholarship.
I did, yeah. It was actually so interesting. The package that the Chevening Scholarship offer is amazing. So for those that don't know, it's offered to people that live in different parts of the world, British Overseas Territories I think it is, and they offer you, if you've got your undergraduate degree, you're then offered to be able to go and continue your studies with a master's, and they fund you for that and give you various different bits to help you along the way. For example, I know that with the Chevening Scholarship they give you money that will help you to attend networking events because that's part of it. So they sort of teach you to progress your career. And it sounds like such a fantastic opportunity that people should definitely know about and be making advantage of.
Well, here in the Falklands, the majority of Chevening scholars are Cockwells, actually, from the same family.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But Michael Poole, who was top of our MLA list for a long time. We have a list of MLAs in the office here that we score them on various frivolous points, but he was top of the leaderboard for ages. He went over and did a master's in business administration.
Yeah.
And he's back in the islands now, working at FIDC, which you'll see on Falklands in Focus this week 389. 390.
But I mean, it all relates back to the skills shortage list, because the Chevening Scholarship, one of the deals with it is that you have to come back to the islands for 2 years max. So I think it's great that they are encouraging people with this potentially new set of skills that could be helping the skills shortage list to go and learn more and then come back.
It is not the only scholarship that's knocking around, because Stephen Foames, who happens to be sitting here as our random accountant that we've chosen, Stanley Services offer a scholarship called the John D.M. Robertson CBE Fund, don't they?
They do indeed, yes.
How does that work?
Basically, there's company allocates £10,000 a year, usually around April each year, and we advertise it in all the media, and applications come in, and it's really so for anybody who is 21 or over. It's really concentrated on people that probably didn't go the education route initially, but have decided later on in life that they want to take a career path. And
it's not just academic, is it?
No, very most of the people in recent years that have been successful in getting funding, it's been to do with again widening the skill set within the Falkland Islands, to be perfectly honest. So
we can say who it was, the Jeff and the Beer Works. That was part of Scottish
Stanley
Scholarship.
That's a particularly good example.
That's a fantastic example.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, like his stuff very much.
So do you offer that to contractors?
It's got to be perceived as being of benefit to the Falklands.
Okay.
That's one of the criteria. So potentially yes, in that case, because if it's seen as being potentially beneficial to the Falklands, then yes.
So lots of opportunities out there. If you're listening to this and you are in the Falklands, and you're thinking about doing some more education, obviously there's lots of of avenues open to you, and also I think one of the fishing companies has got a similar scholarship scheme as well. But anyway, also on this programme this week we've got, do you know what, I'm going to get up and find out what we've got, because I can't remember, can you?
Well, we've got the big one that happened this week.
Oh yes, the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Dare we talk about it?
Should we begin?
Should we
Oh,
begin?
go
Where
on.
do we begin?
Please do. They're desperate. They're desperate to talk about it.
The drag show, Drag Stravaganza, which I'm not sure entirely the whole court of kings and queens were really pleased with that word, but I think
I
it
enjoyed
worked.
it.
It's nice to say in the mouth, isn't it? Drag Stravaganza. So it works really well. A lot of hard work. Actually, you were involved in that as well, weren't you, Steve?
Where?
Yeah, there was a lot of hard work from a lot of people.
A lot of people, and it was a complete and utter team event. From backstage, that was Lisa and Mark, who were just
Kept us right backstage, to be honest.
Oh my goodness, they were brilliant. The lighting, which was just amazing, that was Chris and Nancy. Soundly and Adrian did the sound, and then everyone who's behind the bar. Absolutely. People on the and going all the way, people on the door. You know, Jeremy, you stood outside all night long to keep us all safe. You know, everything. It wasn't just the performers, and an absolute fantastic team who then all turned up the following day to help us clean up as well.
That's how you do it, isn't it?
So it was really, really pleased with that. We raised quite a bit of money, which was split between three worthwhile organisations. The first one, the bar profits went to FITV, because obviously, listeners, you'll know, we're a very small company, so it allows us to send what goes towards sending a team to cover the Island Games, which will be in Gibraltar next year. But also we gave some to the Royal British Legion.
Yep.
They had half the door takings, and also FIODA, the drama group, who are non-profit, and
allows more productions to be put on in the future, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
So maybe that theatre could get a job down here one day.
Yeah. Oh, I love how you've done that. You've wrapped it up round. That's what comedians do.
You know.
Yeah, brought it right back, right down. That's fantastic. Right, looking for next week then. That's not the board. That's the board. Oh, it looks a little bit empty.
Well, Hannah's back on Monday. Her flight comes in, hopefully, if all goes well.
Yes, she should be back. GCSE results this week as well, apparently. So we'll have to doorstep the school and get those, see what's happening there. Thomas will be doing the second week of his hockey tournaments, although I think the tournament's finished, hasn't it? And he's doing the friendlies or something like that.
Oh, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either. So we'll find out. Look on our Facebook page to find out what's happening there.
Yeah, just go there, listeners.
And I've put reading down here, but I don't know why. I went into the school, I think it was last week, and spoke to a group of children who have got a reading group down there, and they're reading a book by a guy called Andy Riley, I think, who has actually written to them and sent them a copy of the book, and has written to them and drawn pictures and sent them to them.
Oh, that's amazing.
So they've got this sort of reading group, and they're so passionate about it. So I hope that we can put together something about reading there.
What age are these students?
I don't know. I think
is it primary school?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like
lovely.
Year 3 or something.
Yeah.
Year 4 or something like that.
Very good.
They're probably sitting there listening to this going, no, it was Year 5. I don't know. They were in primary school anyway.
No.
Because we were going to promote my book again. Do you remember?
Oh, yes.
when we discussed this.
Well.
Because Caiti is re-listening to a load of
a podcast series, which is very popular. It hit number 1 in the Apple podcast charts. Other podcast apps are available. And it's called... it's a comedy series about a person's dad who's written a book, and then 3 friends are discussing the book and laughing at it.
They've gone on tour with it, you know.
They have. They've been all around the world.
They've so good, yeah.
So I'm listening to that, and then was thinking about how funny it is that his dad wrote that kind of book, and then realised that actually I could start my own podcast series. We could link it with Meanwhile in the Falklands.
Yes.
Called my boss didn't write a porno.
That's right, because I didn't, and it wasn't. It was a very romantic book. So
A very
let's just get that
romantic
straight
book. Great,
right from the
okay.
start.
But where can people get your book if they want to join me on my podcast series?
There are other books available,
There
obviously.
are other books available, but I would recommend this one if you want to read along with me.
It's called The Pianist.
Great.
And my writing name is Rita Seagull. Follow me on Twitter. And yeah, you can get it from Kindle Direct Publishing.
And then listen along with my new podcast.
We should do that.
My boss didn't write a porno.
Do you know what? Because there's a bit of the main character is French.
Oh, great.
And we could get Thomas to do all the French bits.
Ah, he can be the man in it. I'll be the woman. Great.
Ah, let's do that. That's
wonderful.
It.
Well, join us on our next podcast journey, everyone. We're ambitious here at FITV.
So join us next time where we won't sound like we're in a tin can.
No, we won't.
We'll be back to proper microphones, and that's my phone going off. And don't forget you can subscribe to watch FITV. You'll need to watch week number 390 if you're listening along to this podcast. Go to our website fitv.co.fk, subscribe, like this podcast.
Certainly do. Rate us 5 stars and leave
Rate
us a
us
comment.
5
Let us know
stars.
what you think about our new segment of our podcast as well.
Yeah, cool. And also write in as to what we can call that new segment.
Yeah, give us your ideas and let us know if you would like to be an accountant, and we can get Steve to answer your questions.
Yeah. Okay, we'll see you next week. Don't forget, I am not Matthew Bourne.
Goodbye.
Bye now. Bye.